So good morning, everyone. This is Sammy. I'm an estate agent in Harborne. And as you know, I've been ranting about solicitors in my last 5 or 6 videos. And today we've got a solicitor on the channel and he is a breath of fresh air. His name is Stuart. Stuart, tell everyone about yourself and what you do.
Right, hi there. So my name's Stuart Forsdike. I'm one of the partners at a law firm called PCS Legal. We originated in Basildon. We've now got offices in Basildon, Wickford, Ongar, London, and we conduct conveyancing of all types all across the UK.
And when you say you're one of the partners, how big is your actual firm? How many people do you employ there?
We employ approximately 120 staff across the different offices, mainly in Essex and London.
Yes, quite a big team you've got there conveyancing. Have you found anything's changed, obviously, with this corona issue that we've got going at the moment? Have you had to change anything? Have people been able to adapt quickly to it?
Well, obviously the world's changing. Insofar as the practice, we have more people working at home than we've ever had before. Our offices in Basildon are actually still open, albeit there is a skeleton staff. We have a quirky setup in Basildon in that the estate where our offices are situated, we're actually in 3 separate buildings. So we have sort of one person per floor. And the main people that are in are covering the workload, which is relating to wills and probate, more than the conveyancing. But in terms of the conveyancing, all the fee owners are all working at home. They've all got laptops, they've all got mobiles, etc., that the phones can divert to. So in essence, you could arguably say that clients in theory shouldn't notice much of a difference, albeit that all the third parties we deal with, and that's a lot of the time what people don't sometimes take into consideration. So i.e. the land registry, the revenue, and at the moment, the banks, they're the people that kind of slow us down. And particularly over the last few weeks, the banks have been very difficult to get hold of when we've been ordering money for completions. You know, we would normally like to call them and make sure the money's going to be on its way, etc. But we've been regularly faced with, call waiting times of 2 hours just to get through. So it's been difficult in that respect. But in terms of the work that we're doing, we have a sophisticated case management system that we use anyway, and we can dial into that from wherever we're sitting, whether it be at home or in the office.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a change, but not huge. We're very similar. We've always been quite digital, and our move to work from home has been quite seamless. When people call the office, the phones get answered, then we get an email coming through to us with who's been calling us. So the customers won't necessarily know that we're not working in the office, and it's a glimpse of the future. I keep saying this, like what we're doing now could be the next 20 years of work. You could spend 3 days at home and 2 days in the office and have more family time. You just don't know where it's going to go.
No, I think it's a generalisation. It's that word communication, isn't it? That buzzword. I think, the world demands more communication. And if you need to be at home for whatever reason, yet you can still communicate with various different devices, then obviously it's got to be better for everyone. I always use the sort of analogy that, if I want to go and buy a TV now, I go on Amazon. I want the cheapest possible TV I can get, the brand that I want, and I want it here tomorrow. Or even with Amazon Prime, you can get it on the same day, can't you? So it's not just, lawyers continually moan about, the service we have to give and what's reasonable, what's unreasonable. But I think it cross-genders every industry.
It does. Like we've had a big shake-up with online agents coming in and started stamping their feet and crushing our fees down to as low as they've ever been. But who knows what this is going to do to those online companies, because if they can't do viewings and sell their stock and their margins are very, very low anyway, they could just end up just being completely and utterly insolvent. We don't know where it's going to go. The reason I got you on, I got you on today because obviously I said I've been moaning about solicitors not using Corona as the biggest excuse ever to slow things down. There are a number of things that really bug me about solicitors, and obviously we're using you now whenever our clients allow us to recommend a company. We recommend you at the moment because you do things in the way that we operate: digital, streamlined, efficient, quick, and you get the job done. And you're not cheap. You're not the cheapest out there, but you do the job. And sometimes people pay a little bit more to get the job done. And one of the things I was always pet hate is right now is searches. Like right now we've got a case going on, and they're refusing to order searches until they get the draft contract pack back from the solicitor from the vendor. And I said to the gentleman, look, is that your process? Is that law? Can you like enlighten me on that? Why are they holding back on ordering searches?
Yeah. Well, I mean, your remit as a lawyer is to act in the best interest of your client. Okay. So what used to happen, a common process would be that, you receive money from your client, receive a draft contract pack. You might have a look through that draft contract pack. And if it's safe to do so, there's nothing wrong with the property, you then order the searches. However, we would take a different kind of stance on that. First of all, as there is at the moment, there are local authorities, water companies that are having various troubles, meaning that the information you need is slow at coming back. So if you have a third party that you can't control in terms of the speed of delivery, you need to make sure you're ordering those searches as quick as possible, because you could cost the client their purchase if you're too slow. The clients could have a deal on a transaction going through quickly. You need to make sure that every bit of information you receive, you can process as quickly as possible. And I think people sometimes get a bit confused with the length of time a transaction takes. And as an average, most conveyancing transactions, if you're acting on a purchase, you've got around about 3 months worth of work to do. And if you do it in what I call like a domino fashion, one thing happens, then you do the next thing, then you do the next thing. From when a client gets introduced to you to the time they exchange and complete, it will be 3 months. But what we would like to try and do is as much of that process as possible, as early as possible. So with vendors, we might try and get them to start completing forms and supplying us with information even before they've got a buyer. So they've got a bit more time to think about it and compile the information. And what that will simply mean is when they get a buyer, the same day we get their lawyer details, we can issue a draft contract pack, and automatically from day dot, we're 2-3 weeks ahead of the game. And, the same applies to the purchase. You know that you are going to have to order those searches if the client's buying with a mortgage. So you've got to do it anyway. So my take on that is that as long as the client's okay with it, and as with anything we do, the clients have to give their authority. But on the basis the clients are okay with it, they'll pay their fee, we will order their searches straight away. And that is so I can get the results of those searches straight away, so I can advise my clients if there are any potential problems with the property that they're looking to buy, or that there aren't any problems and they're safe to crack on, they're safe to potentially pay a survey fee, that kind of thing. They're safe to incur more fees and progress their purchase that bit more.
Yeah, like that's the way I sort of think as well. And I've heard some people in the past say that they won't order searches until the mortgage offers come back. But I've also heard that some mortgages won't offer based on some of the search results anyway. So if the results have like some sort of like flooding risk, some banks may not lend on that.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, it's a catch-22. The theory behind not ordering searches until the mortgage offer is produced is that if that client couldn't obtain a mortgage offer, as a lawyer, you could have wasted their money in ordering the searches. But it's all pro quo, because you could get the searches. There could be a big problem with the property that the clients are buying that may mean the clients don't go ahead. That could then have saved them the valuation fee. They could have had a home buyers report carried out. You could save them money by doing the searches early. So I don't subscribe to the theory that you should be waiting for a mortgage offer to come back.
Yeah.
Equally, again, you've got no control over how long a mortgage will take to be offered, or how long the search results will take to come back. And if as a result of you delay an exchange because you don't have that information, well then, a purchaser could, potentially they could lose the property that they're buying.
Yeah. And as you know yourself, searches can take what, 5 weeks?
Depends on the council. All different local authorities are different. So it's normally anything from the worst case, 5 weeks. Some are quick, some in Essex will be down to a week, but it really does depend. And of course, the speed at which they produce their searches can really be relayed to simple facts. They could have, staff shortages or staff illness, silly things like that can affect the time it takes. So, with that sort of thing in mind, what might apply today might not be the case in a week. So the best theory is to better be safe than sorry, get them ordered straight away. As long as the client knows that you're spending their money on those search results, and that once they've got those results, that money, if they decided not to go ahead, can't be recouped, then there's no risk element to it.
Yeah, right. That's pretty much why we use you guys. And I think bit by bit, most solicitors will start to recognise that ordering the searches at the start of the process can help most likely save a bit of time, and it can give a quicker insight into the actual property by knowing all the details about the searches and from
Well,
the
most
searches.
definitely. When we receive a draft contract pack and we're looking through the information that's been supplied by a vendor, it's very helpful to also have information supplied by the water company, by the local authority, so that we're ahead of the game. When we're looking through that draft contract pack, I can see that the seller might have said that, the road's publicly maintained. Okay, but I can also cross-reference that with a search and think, 100% that road is publicly maintained. It's not private. So, you're doing more work if you have to segment it and do it all at different stages.
That's it. In essence, that's the whole point there. You can do it quicker, and I like that. Another thing that's bugging me is communication at the moment with between solicitors and buyer, vendor, and sometimes a broker as well. And I know you do have like some sort of WhatsApp group. And do you want to tell everyone about that?
Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? We invest sort of so much on different technology mediums, from case trackers to this, that, the other, spreadsheets, Google spreadsheets, all this jazz. But one of the most simplest things we do are WhatsApp groups. And if the client's okay with it, if the client is aware that you're going to be sharing information with other parties and they're okay with that, then we can add Mr., we can add Mrs., we can add the estate agent, we can add the mortgage advisor, all to one big WhatsApp group. Each of our case handlers has a company mobile on their desk, and a mortgage offer arrives. They can go on that WhatsApp group and they can, just a one-liner, mortgage offer's arrived, and it just keeps everybody's mind at rest. And every single person's updated with that information. They're not expecting a big long, report on that offer by WhatsApp. That will go out by email in the normal way. But just to keep that person's mind at rest, and to save them having to read a 2-page, 3-page report, a simple WhatsApp telling them it's in, just keeps everybody's mind at rest, and nobody needs to ask anybody anything. You're telling the broker, your work's done, I've got the offer. The estate agent knows, so then all of a sudden you're not having to, reply to an email or reply to a telephone message to tell the agent it's in, because they know. Mr's not got to tell Mrs. Mrs is not going to forget to tell Mr. Everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet.
It's just so
and it
true.
takes seconds to type it. You look through your post or you get an email, it comes in, bang, you just type out that WhatsApp, it's done.
Yeah, it's totally true. We do it with lettings as well. So we've got group tenants. So we have all our tenants in one group, so we can just tell them everything instantly in one message. Otherwise, through my software, sounds ridiculous. I've got to click like 10 buttons and then type the email. And just those 10 clicks bug me. So we just WhatsApp, push, send it straight away. And then we can, if we have to, upload that to the journal and it's all documented, which I'm sure you guys do that afterwards anyway.
Yeah, we do all that. I mean, I'm not sure if everybody knows, but not only can WhatsApp be used on a mobile phone, it can also be used on a desktop computer as well. So we use both mediums and we import that information into our case management system. So it's all recorded, but it's more for putting that sort of snippets of information. Sometimes, a mortgage advisor doesn't need to know anything apart from the mortgage offer being received. An estate agent doesn't want to know about how much they're borrowing and all the ins and outs. They just want to know that the lawyer's got it. It's a key stage in any transaction: searches, contracts, deposit, mortgage offers, etc., etc., etc. If you can just let every single person know, then it's very easy. And we traditionally here have teams of 3. So you'll have a case handler, stroke fee earner, they have an assistant, and they have a secretary as well. So sometimes we can have the secretary, the assistant, the fee earner, the mortgage advisor, Mr., Mrs., the estate agent, all in one big group. And we find that, by doing this en masse, the levels of communication are so much more streamlined, because, you type one message, you told everybody that's involved in it. Literally, everybody involved in that transaction knows in seconds.
That's just amazing.
So simple as well.
It's so
basic. The biggest the really quirky other thing about it is it's free. It's free. We spend absolutely thousands on technology now, and some of the investment you make, you think, God, that's a lot of money. WhatsApp's free.
Yeah. So when things are so simple and basic, they can help so much, but people just look through them. I guess it's because we put a lot of trust into solicitors and we're guided by them. And I have mentioned WhatsApp to one solicitor before, and he was like, "Don't be so ridiculous. We could never do that. Has to be done by post." I'm just knocking my head. It just bugs me, and we've got one going through at the moment with you guys, and I don't know if you've set up the WhatsApp group yet, because it's very early stages, but the vendors are on the ball with me. Like they get it. So they will definitely. I know not everyone wants a WhatsApp group, but most should.
No, I mean, there's two things taken to account. Number one, the client has to agree to it, okay? Because you will get some quirky clients that don't want us to share information with the estate agent or whatever the scenario may well be. So the client does have to agree to it. So when we send out all our terms and conditions, once the client's sent all the forms back, we then send them it's like a glorified electronic business card. And we ask them to opt into the WhatsApp group. And as long as they come back and say, yes, they're happy for it, it will then be set up. So it depends how quick they come back. We then start to set them up, and then we're rocking and rolling.
You just like name it like transaction of 123 Happy Road or something, whatever the road name is.
It's just the property address.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I look at the work phone at the moment, there's just hundreds of property addresses on there.
I like that. And hopefully, the more we give to you, I will start being in them groups and we start communicating.
I literally forget who's in the groups as well, because it's weird from a faceless point of view. I just jump on there and find the address and tap something out. We utilise it in a different kind of way as well. Sometimes we'll regularly make sort of FaceTime calls. So as we're having a conversation now face to face, sometimes if the client's particularly worried about something, in this day of modern technology, it's actually nice to have a face-to-face conversation with them.
Yep.
And, when you're dealing with emails and modern technology, sometimes you actually can't pick up on somebody that might be worried about something, or, is that person actually getting what you're trying to say? But if you have a face-to-face conversation, you can get a bit more out of it. And equally, from our due diligence, we have to be extremely careful these days that people are who they say they are. When we're looking at people selling properties, etc., how do you know that the person at the other end of that email is Mr. Smith? You don't. Emails can be hacked. There's so much property fraud on the scene these days that by having a simple FaceTime conversation with somebody, I know the instruction I'm receiving is coming from that person because I'm looking at them.
Yeah. And I think you touched before on previous conversations I've had with you that you can actually use FaceTime to verify IDs. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, I'm looking at you now. So if I've got your passport here, okay, we can do all the electronic checks that there are available. Okay, we should be profiling our clients to make sure we know how they get their money, that they're legit, etc., etc. We always back that up with a FaceTime conversation. So I know the person, I'm looking at their ID, I'm looking at the person on the screen. Yes, that's definitely that person. If you go back sort of 20, 25 years, I just see every single client that I acted for in person. But the difference then was that there was no internet, or it was very early days. There were no iPhones. That's it. None of this. I can remember trialing a BlackBerry saying, do you know what, I'm not sure that'll ever work. Having emails on your phone, Jesus, why on earth would you want emails on your phone? That was 20, 25 years ago. The world has moved on, and people now don't have the time to come to your office. They don't want to come to your office on some occasions, but they still want to be able to talk to the person that's going to be handling the business transaction that they're ever likely to undertake. And if they are concerned about something, having a face-to-face conversation goes a long way. And as far as we're concerned, it's very, very risk compliant, speaking to people, taking instructions from people that we know are definitely the client and not some potential fraudster.
Yeah, so it's three good things you touched on there. I think one of them is all those are like problems that arise currently with solicitors that I find now. So obviously not ordering searches, not communicating quickly, and trouble with the ID. And the final thing that is bugging me right now, actually happening right now, is we've got a sale going through, and the buyer has sent the document, signed it and scanned it back to the solicitor, also posted it back to the solicitor, and the solicitor will not touch the file. Even though he has the scanned version, he won't speak to the bank and draw down the funds for the mortgage until he gets the wet signature, as you call it. Now, for me, I'm thinking, you can at least call them and start the process. But the way he explained it to me, it's like illegal if he did that. Is that true?
No, it's not. No, it's not true. No. Wet signatures. There's two different parts of that question. We can rely on an e-signature. Okay, legally they are applicable. However, it's not just the contract that we deal with. So when we're acting for a buyer, there are several documents which are signed. It's not just the contract, there's also a transfer and there's also a mortgage deed. And the contract is a document made between a buyer and seller. If anything goes wrong, there are legal implications behind those documents and there are remedies that either party can use. But as a lawyer, once the purchaser has concluded, they've all moved in, we've still got a big job to do. And that big job involves going to the land registry, to the revenue, paying off stamp duty, and actually registering that person's ownership. Now, depending on the type of property the client's bought, may mean that the land registry need wet signatures. So it is quite often a requirement that we do need wet signature documents. However, that doesn't alleviate your, the need to correspond with banks, to potentially order monies. I think people got into this mindset that conveyances like dominoes, is one sort of falls down, then the next thing happens. But if you do that, you unfortunately, that's why I think the national average now is 19 weeks for a purchase to go through. So I wouldn't want all ours taking that long. They'll be hanging around forever.
Yeah, 19 weeks. Jeez.
Yeah, 19 weeks is the national average now. Yeah, so it's crazy. But you have to sort of multitask is the term to use. We have to multitask. We have to simultaneously be thinking about ordering monies, looking through things, speaking to banks, waiting for documents to come in. And it amazes me. I'm often gobsmacked that even now, sort of 25 years after I first started, you'll have a scenario where you've been talking to somebody for 2 to 3 months, talking about a transaction, and you just got through some really technical, some really nitty-gritty points. And at that point, they then say, right, okay, well, I'm going to send the contract to my client for them to sign, and I'm going to request a deposit. And you think, you've had that for 2 to 3 months. Wouldn't it have been a good idea to ask for the contract to be signed whilst we're going through this process, so that once everything had been ironed out, bang, we're ready? Why wait to the last minute to do, these checks, that check, get a contract signed, request a deposit? We all know you've got to do it. So why wait to the very end to do it? You're just going to prolong everything.
Yeah, they seem to be buying time. All the time want to buy time with us. We had a sale fall through because they decided to do the AML checks on the last day, and they had like 2 months to do them. And when they checked them, the buyer had no time, who was going on holiday, to get all the paperwork to them. He went to China for 3 weeks, and he ended up moving solicitors and bought it through someone else. But they just seem to delay. Like you said, the domino thing, that's the process, that's the order when that's done. But that is archaic, and we call it dinosaur. It's old-fashioned, and it has to change. And I think maybe this corona might just be the catalyst to allow everyone just to see how you can change.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to bear in mind that when I first started the job and started to make my way out in the profession, it was the same process back then that it is now. Exactly the same. The only real change is that HIPs came in, HIPs went, and we probably merged from receiving post into more email communication, albeit we still receive substantial amounts of posts on a daily basis from other law firms that you think, Christ, it's a 1 or 2 line letter. You think, just that could have been so easily emailed. But not just for ease, just the cost as well. It must cost people to send out volumes of post and envelopes, and the production of it so much easier to type an email. So it's amazing really how the legal profession has not moved with the times and has really stagnated. And there's been lots of talk over the previous year, 2 years, about the conveyancing process and about potential change. And I've been a massive advocate for property logbooks. I think that a client having an electronic property logbook where they can save all their data, so that when they come to sell it, there's a central portal with everything saved on there, everything available that can instantly be produced, has again got to be another really good thing. Reservation agreements, yes, you could argue that that could be a way forward, but I'm still not so sure that the level of deposit would be substantial enough to not put people off withdrawing. And I also think that with regards to the process, I think there is a big sort of emphasis on gazumping, gazundering, this kind of thing, whereas I think the biggest problem, and I might be completely wrong here, but I think the biggest gripe that 95% of estate agents, brokers and clients would have with the conveyancing process is the time it takes. I'm not sure that, that the actual conveyancing system with exchange, with completion, is that broken. I think it's just the level of time it takes that's the beef, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure how much of a big issue, I might be a bit controversial by saying it, but I'm not sure how much of a big issue gazumping is. I think it's more the length of time the whole process takes.
No, when you were saying, building up to that answer, in my head I was thinking time. The biggest problem is time. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Solicitors, I think, need to change a little bit. Not a lot. Like this process isn't completely broken, but it can be sped up. And then we need some confidence put back into the whole system as well, because even buyers now come to us and say, what, is going to be like 3-4 months? And we're like, hopefully not. We try and get it done in 2 months, but I can't guarantee if you go with your solicitor who you've always used your whole life is going to be able to do it in the same process that I would do it. And you just don't know. And I think it might change now. I really do hope it does change.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, now's the time for change because everybody's going to have the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm a massive advocate on sales, sellers producing papers, whether it be planning documents, building regulation consents, fence certificates. The production of all their forms should take place when the property is put on the market, not when they've found a purchaser. Because if subsequently there is a problem with something being missing, that's going to be sorted out. Whereas you could do that whilst the buyer, we're waiting for a buyer. And I also think the other way around. I really think that, I know we've spoken before about sort of almost pre-qualifying buyers. And if you have a buyer that is sort of legally ready, they come through, they've had their ID verified, checked, they've got their money ready on account to have searches placed in hand, I really think that, a seller's going to be much more inclined to, take an offer from that type of buyer rather than somebody that needs to do everything and they're not ready.
I like that model, that method, ready buyers, ready sellers. You've got a word for it, haven't you? What do you call it? Like your business?
Loads of it. I mean, we sort of call it fast move on our sale, express mover on our purchasers.
Yeah.
So just trying to get them all ready, become legally ready. And there's various products on the market that can help with that. It's not just us that are doing it. It's just, we need the whole industry to sort of, have that change and that mentality of trying to get it done quicker. And from a legal standpoint, from us, being a firm of licensed conveyancers, what a fantastic thing it would be to have our cash flow sped up. The sooner we get these things exchanged and completed, sooner we get paid. That has to be a massive bonus for anyone.
No, you're right. But look how we got shook up by the online companies. Something should shake you up, like the AVM, the automatic valuation method, could come in. If Land Reg stopped taking wet signatures and accepted digital signatures, if those two things were sped up and if the searches came back faster, it would change the industry, and everyone will have to.
Yeah. I mean, the land registry are making inroads. The time it takes us now to register somebody's purchase is a lot quicker than it's ever been. Other than new build properties and unregistered, they're now taking applications online, which is a lot easier than the old way of having to send everything again through the post. It's just that in this day and age, I think some entities within the industry are just too far behind still. But hopefully, if there's any good to come out of the situation that we are in, the only thing I could think of is the possibility that we can all work more efficiently. We can all work with greater clarity and communication, and of course, quicker. And the benefit of that is we're all going to get paid quicker. Clients will be happier. They'll be in their properties quicker. Less chance of things going wrong. Less chance of gazumping and so on and so forth. So it has got to benefit all parties, surely.
Yeah, no, we hope so. I think there is change happening, and it's been great talking to you. And I'm glad you came on, because I've been ranting about those things, and you've given me another perspective, which I love. And that's why we're going to start using you, and hopefully we can grow something together. And thank you for your time.
Definitely, no probs. Take care.